Welcome. We're diving deep into the sources you sent us on, well, one of the biggest challenges out there, achieving English fluency and doing it quickly, naturally.
That's right.
If you've spent all those hours on grammar rules, if you know the words but you just freeze up the second you have to speak, this deep dive is for you.
And the sources you sent make a really fascinating argument. The
Mm.
solution isn't more studying. It's
Mm.
uh it's a fundamental hack. It's behavioral, it's psychological.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to find that shortcut, to move you from just knowing English to finally confidently speaking it.
Bypassing that whole classroom path.
Exactly, straight to fluency. Okay, let's unpack this. When we looked at why so many smart, capable learners just get stuck, the sources all pointed to one central, really stubborn barrier, and it's not a lack of knowledge.
No, not at all. It's almost entirely emotional. It's fear.
It's fear.
Right.
The fear of mistakes, the fear of embarrassment, of being judged by native speakers. It can be debilitating.
And that's the critical distinction.
Mm.
We think of language as this cognitive task, right? But the real block is emotional. People can read complex articles, they can follow a movie,
But the moment they're on the spot,
they freeze, they hesitate, they stumble, and then they just stop trying.
this hesitation, this sort of internal resistance, is what the material calls the real enemy, and that leads right to the big idea here.
The radical shift.
You don't need to study English, you need to live English.
I mean, think about it. How did you learn your first language?
Yeah.
It wasn't through structured lessons.
No?
It was total immersion. You were listening, you were copying sounds, making, spectacular mistakes, and just using it all the time without worrying about grammar.
And the core idea here is if you can just replicate that environment, you can replicate the result. So we've structured this deep dive around the three big shifts the sources say you have to make. First, the mindset reset to beat that fear.
Second, creating your own personal English bubble.
And finally, what they call the ultimate key to speaking without thinking, which is, well, learning to think in English. So we have to start where all real change starts, right? Internally.
Yep, the mindset.
The sources are really clear on this. The single most critical step is changing your internal narrative. If you go into this believing English is difficult, your brain will just fight you every step of the way.
It's a conservation of energy thing. Our brains are designed to avoid things we label as hard or high risk. And public embarrassment, that's definitely high risk.
So you have to override that.
You have to. And the instruction is simple. Deliberate affirmation.
Right. You have to stop saying things like, my English is bad, or I can't speak English. The sources say those are basically self-fulfilling prophecies. You're programming yourself to fail.
So you actively replace it.
Hmm.
Every morning or anytime you hear that little voice of doubt, you just replace it with something simple. English is easy. I can speak English. I am learning every day.
And this isn't just, motivational fluff. It's behavioral conditioning,
It is. You're overwriting years of negative programming.
which connects directly to reframing how you see mistakes. In a classroom, a mistake gets you a red mark. It's a penalty.
But here, a mistake is presented as the only proof that you're actually learning.
That's such a powerful way to look at it.
It is. If you aren't making errors, you're just staying in your comfort zone. You're not pushing your boundaries. So mistakes are actually just data points. They're guiding you.
They use that analogy of a baby learning to walk, which is perfect.
Right. The baby falls down, gets back up, tries again. No one looks at the baby and says, your walking is terrible, maybe just stop.
Of course not. They just keep going until it's automatic.
And that highlights the bigger picture here. Fluency is a physical skill, not just an intellectual one. Your vocal cords, your brain's language centers, they need practice and failure to get stronger.
So you have to kill the emotional resistance, the fear, before the practice can even work. Okay, so once the internal narrative is hacked, we move to the environment. The number one excuse is, well, I don't live in an English-speaking country.
And the sources just dismiss that completely.
You don't need to move. You need to create the environment right where you are. This is the environment hack.
It's all about forcing your brain to process English constantly, but in these low-threat ways. Immersion without the cost of a flight.
And the first technique they give is, it's so simple. Change your phone's language to English.
And what's so brilliant about that is the cognitive effect.
Yeah.
How many times a day do you look at your phone? Dozens, hundreds.
Hundreds, probably.
And every single time, your brain sees English. Settings, camera, send.
Mhm.
It's passive learning, and it normalizes the language. It makes it feel less foreign without you even trying.
And building on that, the next step is to label your world.
Literally, small pieces of paper.
Yep. Write the English name on them, door, table, refrigerator, and stick them up.
But the power isn't just seeing the label. The instruction is to activate it. You have to say the words out loud.
Right. So you look at the table and you say, this is a table. The keys are on the table.
And what you're doing there is you're training your brain to connect the English word directly to the object, not to the word, your native language. You're cutting out the translation step.
Which is a huge step toward thinking in English.
Sure.
And the final technique in this section is maybe the most important for beating that fear of speaking, the mirror conversation.
The safe zone. You have to practice speaking, but you need a place where mistakes just don't matter at all.
So you talk to yourself in a mirror when you're alone, just 5 minutes a day.
And you just narrate your life. Hello, how are you today? Or, I'm feeling good. I have a lot of work to do.
Sounds a bit silly, maybe.
A little.
Yeah.
But it's engaging the motor skills of speech. It's building that muscle memory, but with zero chance of being judged. It's the ultimate low-stakes practice.
And that builds massive confidence for when the stakes are higher.
So this naturally leads to the big question, right?
Huh.
A lot of people listening are probably thinking, okay, but what about grammar? I don't want to sound uneducated.
It's the trap. It's the trap of traditional education.
And the sources say that focusing too much on perfect grammar early on is one of the biggest mistakes you can make.
Mm-hmm.
It actually fuels the fear.
We're taught that grammar comes first, but the research argues the exact opposite. Learn to speak first.
Grammar is refinement. It comes later.
It's like learning to drive a car. You learn how to make it go and stop before you study the schematics of the internal combustion engine.
Exactly. So the focus has to be on usage, not rules. Instead of memorizing the rules for, say, the present continuous tense.
You just learn and repeat simple, useful sentences. I am eating. She is going to the market. You say them so many times in context that the grammar just becomes intuitive.
You're moving English from this theoretical thing in your head into the active, routine part of your day.
And this is where it gets really transformative. Fluency comes from activating English in your daily routine. Everything you do can become an opportunity to speak.
Take the morning routine example from the material. When you wake up, you don't just get up. You narrate it out loud.
Even if you're alone.
Especially if you're alone. Good morning. I feel fresh today. Let me get up and brush my teeth. You're creating speaking practice out of thin air.
And to help with that, the sources give these little scripted examples for real conversations, not to memorize, but as like confidence templates.
Yeah, they're built around really common, simple exchanges, like the market dialogue.
Right. You practice saying, excuse me, do you have fresh tomatoes?
Yes. How much is 1 kilo? Practicing that little loop removes the shock of a real interaction. You have a script ready to go.
Or the cafe dialogue. Ordering coffee. I want coffee. What about you?
I will have a lemonade.
It's minimal vocabulary, but it requires confidence. Practicing these things builds the muscle that stops fear from taking over in a real social situation.
So as you start speaking more, the next thing you'll notice is clarity. The material is very clear. You don't need a perfect American or British accent.
No.
But people do need to understand you easily. Clarity is the goal.
And for that, there are a few techniques. The first one is all about input. Listen and copy.
You just repeat short sentences exactly how a native speaker says them. You're not focused on the meaning. You're focused on the sound, the tone, the rhythm.
The example sentence was, I want to go to the park now.
Right. And you say that 20 times, trying to perfectly match the sound. It's training the muscles in your mouth.
And then when you start speaking yourself, you have to remember the second technique. Speak slowly and clearly.
This is a big one. People think that speaking fast means you're fluent.
But it just makes you hard to understand.
Rushing just garbles your pronunciation.
Yeah.
So you slow down, you articulate every word. It might feel a little deliberate at first, but it works.
And the third technique creates that feedback loop. Record and compare.
It's so powerful. You record yourself saying the same sentence from the native speaker, then you listen back to your version, then the original, back and forth. You become your own coach.
You hear the difference immediately and you can correct it.
So once clarity's getting better, we come back to confidence. That's the big emotional piece.
And confidence, they say, just comes from consistent practice. At least 15 minutes of speaking every single day. No exceptions.
And to help with that in-the-moment nervousness, there's the 3-second rule.
I love this. It's a psychological hack to stop anxiety before it starts.
When someone asks you a question or you have an idea, you give yourself 3 seconds, max. Then you just speak.
Don't think, don't translate, don't worry about perfect grammar. Just open your mouth.
So if your colleague asks, what did you do yesterday? You don't pause for 30 seconds trying to get the past tense right. You just immediately say, I went to the store, or I watched a movie.
You just speak. It breaks that habit of hesitation.
And that leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, the ultimate key to real fluency: thinking in English.
This is the goal. Because if you're translating in your head from your native language, you will always, always be slow.
You have to eliminate that translation step.
And that sounds really intimidating, but the sources break it down into these small, gradual steps.
You don't start with like complex philosophical thoughts. You start super simple. You just name things in your head in English.
Bed, pillow, sunlight, tree, car.
You just see the world, and your internal monologue uses the English word for it.
Then you move up to simple sentences in your mind. You're eating, so you think, I'm eating rice. This food is delicious.
You're forcing your brain to skip the translation.
Yeah.
That right there, that's the beginning of real fluency.
And what about when you get stuck? You're in a conversation, you're trying to think in English, and you forget a word.
The advice is simple.
Yeah.
Don't stop. Never stop. Find a simpler way to say it.
Maintain the flow.
Exactly. So if you forget the word lost when you're talking about your keys, you don't just freeze up.
You just say, I don't have my keys. I don't know where they are.
You communicated the message. You kept the conversation moving. Fluency over perfection.
So to make this a habit, the source provides a really clear daily plan, a routine.
And this is something you can commit to right away.
In the morning, you name everything around you in English.
In the afternoon, you make simple English sentences in your mind.
In the evening, you watch or listen to at least 20 minutes of English content.
And at night, before you sleep, you speak to yourself in English for 5 or 10 minutes.
If you do that every day, the sources say that within weeks, your brain will just start to generate thoughts directly in English.
It becomes the new default.
So what does this all mean? When we look at all of this, the deep dive shows that fluency isn't about chasing perfection. It's not about memorizing rules.
No, it's about proactively replacing fear with consistent low-stakes practice.
It's a total shift.
Yeah.
From a cognitive academic thing to a behavioral hack. Change your mind, live in English, and just speak.
And the effort you put in matters so much more than the mistakes you make. Embracing this means English success will open doors, better jobs, travel, new friendships, and really a huge boost in self-confidence.
You have the tools now. The only real obstacles are the ones in your head: hesitation and fear. So we've established that focusing on fluent output, not perfect construction, is the fastest way forward. Now, consider this for your immediate application. If language learning is like building a house, is focusing on perfect grammar the same as polishing the doorknobs before you've even laid the foundation?
I like that. So what's one complicated grammar rule you can just decide to ignore for the next week, just so you can focus 100% on how much you're speaking?
Take the tools we've discussed. Change your phone's language. Label your home.
And most importantly, start using that 3-second rule right now. The time to start living in English is now.